Alright, today we're going to learn the final two indicative tenses. The final two. I know, it's been a long year, but we finally made it. The only tenses, we have no new indicative tenses. The only things we have left now are the subjunctive, which are going to be a breeze, and we're going to do them next year. So this is the last couple tenses. You already know which ones we're missing from the synopsis sheet you've done. We're missing the pluperfect passive and the future perfect passive. Let's knock them out in the park. All right? So, looking up, before we jump into that, let's take a quick review of the perfect passive. A reminder, we go to that fourth principal part. We slap it down there 6 times. When we get into the plural, we have to change it to the plural 212 nominative endings according to gender. That's the only change we have to make. And then we just add on the forms of sum s est in the present tense. That's the form of the verb to be. It's good practice to remember those forms, which are very important as well. So let's just use a little logic to discover the pluperfect passive. If vocatus sum is I was called, what would be an easy way to keep the general form the same, but to make it farther back in the past? Will we choose to change vocatus, or will we choose to change sum? Let's think about this for a second. You can pause the video, and then I'm going to tell you. How can we change this to make it easily just a little bit farther back in the past? Because that's what the pluperfect is relative to the perfect. Yeah, all you do is you change sum to aram. You change it from the present tense to the imperfect tense. So, vocatus sum I was called. If I want to make it even farther back in the past, vocatus eram I had been called. You take that sum and you turn it into the imperfect. Vocatus eram. From there on out, all the other forms are going to just be your other imperfect forms of sum in the imperfect. So, vocatus eram I had been called. Vocatus eras you had been called. Vocatus erat he had been called. Vocata erat, she had been called, right? Vocati eramus, we had been called, so on and so forth. And that's the pattern. Fourth principal part plus imperfect of sum. So digest that for a moment. Oh, that's not the one we want. We want this one. Let's see if you can translate these next two for us from memory. Take a second, and then I'm going to type them in. Pause the video if you'd like. Yes, he had been heard, because auditus comes from audio, audire, audivi, auditus, and it's masculine. And then victi erant is the women, or maybe there's some other feminine subject, but we'll do women because we don't know anything else. We don't have any other indicators. The women had been conquered because it's feminine. Okay, so there you go. Alright, let's switch it up now and go on to the next tense. We're moving quickly, but you'll understand why once we see this next tense. So we have vocatus sum as I was called, vocatus eram as I had been called. What would we logically change to get the future perfect? What would be ideal? Or make it easy? Are we going to change vocatus or aram? And this one might be a little bit easier to guess what's going to happen here, seeing as it's the future perfect. Yes, we just take that aram and change it from the imperfect of sum to the future of sum. So vocatus ero is I will have been called. I will have been called. Future perfect. Right, we've seen that in the future perfect active. It's now, we're just taking the subject, and rather than having it do the action, it's receiving the action. So rather than I will have called, we have to make the I receive it. I will have been called. Vocatus ero. And try and think of the other forms right now. Pause the video and think of them if you'd like. Try and think of how you would say, how I say you will have been called. She will have been called, for example. And then I'm going to show you. Yeah. Just the forms of ero. You just got to remember your future of ero, eriseret. Ero, eriseret, arimus, eritis, erant. Ah, yes. This is maybe the one tricky part. is that now we actually can use all the forms of arrow. Remember, in future perfect active, we can't use erunt here, right? We can't say will call werunt to say they will have called, because we already are using erunt in everyone's favorite hit single, e isti it imus istis erunt, which we know is the perfect tense endings. So we have to use errant, but when we're in the future perfect passive, we can use vocati erunt because we aren't using it in the perfect passive. Remember, in the perfect passive system, we use sunt. So we have erunt available. Well, let's use it. Vocati erunt. They will have been called. All right. Couple of quick hits of the practice here. Audite rimus. I'll give you a second before I type it in. Pause the video if you like. Yes, we will have been. We will have been heard. And then moniti eritis. Y'all will have been warned. Y'all have been warned. Yeah, you can't really make another apostrophe onto y'all. Will have been heard. It's a little bit easier to do that with. Alright, so you get a little taste of this. Do a little practice. You can find it in your textbook in chapters 20 and 21. If you flip into those chapters, you can find more practice, which is always a good idea to get this idea solidified. And I will see you in class tomorrow.